I thrive on friction because it makes us better. So I want you to tell me why I'm wrong, why this won't work. And this is the second part, right? Because you can't just stop there. You then have to reward people for doing it. And what I mean by rewarding, I'm not talking about physical or giving them more compensation or anything like that. I'm talking about thanking them in the meeting in front of other people for disagreeing with you.
You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now, without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Hey there, everybody. Sarah Box, the host of the No Labels, No Limits podcast, where you know we're on a mission to help individuals, teams, and organizations, especially our nonprofit friends, think outside the box, move beyond limiting beliefs and labels, and create a profound impact in the lives of others. And by virtue of doing that, they actually do it for themselves as well. And we do this by sharing accomplished and inspiring guests. Today's guest is no different. In fact, we've been doing a pre-chat and now I'm laughing, which feels great. So we're going to have Justin Jones-Fosu, or Fosu. He'll correct me on that in a minute. He's a dynamic speaker and author, and he consults specializing in practical diversity, inclusion, and leadership. I think that barely steps on the tip of what he does. But he has this deep-seated passion for fostering inclusive and empowering workplace environments. That's all I'm going to say about that because there's more. He has an MBA with a focus on leadership and organizational change, and he's been recognized for his engaging workshops, which educate and inspire action. You'll get why they're engaging in a minute. He's authored several impactful books, including his latest on transformation and inclusion practices. His work is fueled by his commitment to creating spaces where diversity is valued and everyone has the opportunity to thrive. In his free time, I'm not sure where that is, he is an avid traveler and a community volunteer deeply engaged in local and international development projects. I'm going to ask him to share with you about his Foundations project and how close he is to launching his school. And he's going to also share other meaningful nuggets, let's say. He's got a big event coming up in his life. Two weeks out from when we're recording this now, it'll already be in the rearview mirror by the time this hits you guys. So with that, let's just formally welcome Justin to the podcast. Hey, Justin.
Hey, Sarah, thank you so much. You're awesome. Thank you for your kind words. And you said it right the first time, Justin Jones-Fosu. So you are 90% in the green with me because most people don't say it right.
Hey, you know what? It's like that whole, is it phonetic? I hope it's phonetic. I probably,
yeah.
Right? And I'm going, Fosu. It's not pop, So anyway, blah, blah, blah. Let's get back to you. So there are so many things when I read about you in our pre-chat that I know we could go on forever and ever about. But I want to start with an upcoming major event in your life.
Woo!
About you, mister. Take it away.
Yeah. So now I'm excited to. So my wife, I just got married in March, but we are doing also a traditional Ghanaian wedding in Ghana, and so we have 24 people who are joining us. With our 4 of our 4.5 kids will be there. Our 0.5 is our Labradoodle who is 60 pounds. He is not coming, but we're really excited about doing this. It's going to be at my dad's house in Ghana, and we have about 50 people from my side, and then half of my family is still in Ghana. And so we have a lot of people in Ghana who will be at my dad's house celebrating. So we'll have about 120 people celebrating in a traditional Ghanaian wedding.
So just for those of us, me in particular, who don't know what a traditional Ghanaian wedding is, just give me a picture of it. Because I think we get with what Western weddings are like.
Yeah.
Or even others, but I'm clueless on Ghanaian weddings. So will you enlighten me?
Yeah, I'll give you a few elements because it really is, one, it's a full day experience. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. There's going to be drumming. There's going to be dancing. There's going to be, while we don't necessarily give dowries, but there's the symbolic aspect of giving dowries to the bride's family. and asking for permission, and her family being there, and I'll wear some traditional Ghanaian clothes and kente, and so I'll have that on, and so we'll have a priest there who will support and pray and all those pieces. It's just going to be it's a big celebration. Sometimes, the Western wedding we did, it was very, our pastor, it was very, quiet, and we smiled and laughed, but this is going to be loud and exciting, and everyone in the community will hear it. And it's going to be a fun time. I will sweat probably a lot that day, because we'll be outside, but it's going to be a great time.
What a great event. No, I mean, first you got your simple thing locally, right? And now you get to do the traditional piece and bring more people in. It's just such an honoring of marriage.
Yeah. I'm thankful, and I love it, and I've never done a traditional Ghanaian wedding before, so I'm really pumped to experience that. And so I've been asking my friends, like, all right, I need your help with the kente because I haven't done it, and you have to hold it while you're dancing, and it's a whole big thing about how to put it on, and you wrap it over one shoulder. So I'm trying to get my chest looking nice because my chest will show, and so all that stuff.
It's all the stuff the brides usually have to worry about.
Yeah.
Right. I just like the flip of the script where you're worrying about.
Yeah.
So the mere fact, and we're going to back into this, the mere fact that you're doing this and it's at your dad's house actually has a deeper meaning for you. And it's related to your work and transformative experiences. So let's start there. Would you be willing to share that with the group?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book we just launched was I Respectfully Disagree, How to Have Difficult Conversations in a Divided World. And one of the stories I tell in the book, it's a very vulnerable story for me. And I think, there's a couple of times I cried while writing the book, and this is one of them. Getting goosebumps to even talk about it now. But in 2019, I was going to go to Ghana, go back to Ghana to confront my dad. So what most people don't know is my dad was not in my life growing up in terms of in a meaningful way for me. And it's a myriad of different reasons between he and my mom. But he wasn't in my life in ways I felt that he could have been. And so I was going to go do a Will Smith. And I'm not talking about the Chris Rock version of Will Smith, but the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air Will Smith, where there was an episode in Fresh Prince where he was, where his dad came into his life and all that kind of stuff. And then what most people don't know is an unscripted moment in that TV series is that he fell into Uncle Phil's arms because he was like, "What's cool? I'm getting married with them. I'm gonna have kids with them. I'm gonna do all this stuff." And then he falls into Uncle Phil's arms. He's like, "Why did he love me?" Right? And most people have no idea. It's unscripted. But you felt it. Every time I watch it, I end up crying. And for me, in 2019, that's what I was going to go do. Like, why did you love me? And what helped me, I have a really good therapist, who I still do. Please, y'all go get therapy. It's very important. But two, my Leadership Charlotte cohort, they challenged me, the cohort and my therapist, instead of going to confront my dad in 2019, to going and hearing his story. And so as I went and chose to seek understanding and to learn about my dad's story and what happened in his journey and his life, I learned so much, Sarah. It was so phenomenal. And I better understood how he got to the place he got to, right? In terms of, even for me, in terms of why he may not have stepped up in my life. Now, I left that, I still disagreed. And wished that it could have been a different outcome, but I better understood how he got there. And that is what respectful disagreement is all about. Now, what I didn't realize is that in that moment where I chose to forgive him, because forgiveness is a power of choice, it's up to us, I didn't realize I was holding back so many aspects of my Ghanaian heritage because that's what he represented. And when I forgave him, there was this overwhelming sense of my heritage that washed over me that led me to want to bring people to Ghana for them to experience it. So we take people once a year to Ghana now. It led me to starting a foundation that's supporting educational initiatives on the continent of Africa. We're starting right in my dad's home village. And it's even symbolic that we're doing the traditional wedding, to your point, at my dad's house, because this would not have happened 5 years ago.
it's powerful when we allow ourselves to have what is ours, which is not holding stuff in us that isn't ours to hold, right?
Yeah.
So that whole seeking to understand it's not just theoretical, it's really applied. So
Yes.
in your book, when you talk about how to have difficult conversations, how do you apply that at an organizational level?
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. I mean, sometimes people think about difficult conversations, they automatically go to the societal big stuff, right? Like abortion or gun rights or a myriad of different things, women's rights and things. But this is also about projects and project teams and budgets and which initiative are we going to, or what innovation are we going to lean into? And so a lot of the examples we use are actually workplace examples where people are working together. And so let me give you two different ways to approach it. One is the 5 pillars apply to workplace scenarios. And quickly, the 5 pillars are challenge your perspective, be the student, cultivate your curiosity, then seek the gray, and last but not least is agree to respect. And all of those things can be done within the context of organization. Now, one of the interesting pieces that we found in a lot of organizations and even teams that a lot of people struggle with, because we initially wanted to solve the issue of disrespectful disagreement and helping people to have more moments of respectful disagreement. But Sarah, we didn't realize there was a whole other category that we were missing until we dug deeper into the research. And that was an area called disrespectful agreement. And disrespectful agreement happens mainly in 2 ways. One way is a person that says, Sarah, I think that's a good idea. But then outside, I'm talking to Beth and I'm like, I don't know what Sarah was thinking, right? Because I've agreed with you in the moment, but behind your back, I'm saying a different thing. And a lot of organizations, unfortunately, are still dealing with and struggling with this. The second piece of that is where maybe a person, when they grew up, they were told that children should only be seen and not heard. And so they feel like conflict, even if the leader creates an environment that's open for dialogue and difference, they feel like saying anything against what the leader has said doesn't work because they were taught, I'm just going to keep quiet. So they end up agreeing by their silence, even when opportunities are given for disagreement. And so they disrespect themselves and others in not sharing their truth. So ways that we can do that, it's just a myriad of different ways. I want to give you the overview, but it works in organizations in the same way it works in the community.
Okay, so sweet. You picked one of my favorite, well, actually both, because I see them play out differently in different ways. But the first one you talked about is where I agree with you publicly in a meeting, and then I go outside and I basically badmouth you, right?
Yes.
Parking lot conversations. So if you're a facilitator doing, just watch what happens when people leave the room. Right?
Yeah.
So let's start with that one first. What do we do about that? Do we call people on it? What do we do?
Yeah. So if we are the person, right, we give this example in the book of, this gentleman who's on a project team with this woman, and they're engaging and they're in the project team meeting. He's like, yes, I'm with you and for you. And then she hears behind closed doors that he says something different. And she's ruminating over this because it's bubbling up, and now she doesn't trust him. Now she doesn't value his perspective. She's thinking like, wait a minute, we worked all together. What have you been saying all these years? And so it's important for us in a safe place. And when I say safe, it means when we are emotionally safe to be able to share in a productive way. And I tell people to do the 2 statements when we're giving feedback to someone else. The first thing that we do is ask to give feedback. So imagine this guy is Jim. I'm like, hey, Jim, do you mind if I give you some feedback about a recent meeting we had and something I heard? And then wait for him to respond, right? Why that's important is because physiologically, we don't set people up for the ability to receive what we're getting ready to say, and we end up just jumping right in. And what normally happens is people's defensive walls come up, and we're wondering why they're being defensive, right? So the first thing is to ask to get feedback. 95% of the time, people say yes, right? The 5% we can talk about later. Once they've opened up, you now assume positive intent. even if you feel like 100% they didn't have positive intent. And you not only assume, but you communicate positive intent. I know you may not have meant X, but I heard that you said you didn't agree with my assessment of our project and our initiative. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Now you open up for the person to be able to share and to explain their perspective and to be able to engage. So I do believe that we should address it, but address it in a way that's going to be productive and healthy. If you feel like you're going to do more venting, then identify a support or people that you trust and value that might be outside of work that you can share it with and get it off your chest so that when you go into the conversation, it can be productive. Now, if you're the person receiving this because you did it, and even in my example in the book, I talk about what he didn't want to break her spirits. He didn't want to break the motivation she had in the meeting. And he realized he should have gone to her, but he didn't. And he regretted it, right? Is that one, we should listen. We should ask more questions and then share honestly about why we felt the project wouldn't last or the initiative wouldn't work. But we first have to receive it, take full responsibility for what happened. Full responsibility. And don't do this. Please, y'all, please. Don't say, I'm so sorry you feel that way. You have now put the responsibility on the other person about their feelings. No, it's not about how they felt. It's about what you did to cause them that, even if you had a different intent. And so I'd say, hey, I am so sorry. This actually recently happened to me with one of our board members from the foundation. Is I put out an email and I was listing how the amount that people have raised, and he was at the bottom of that list, and he felt offended. And our program director was reaching out to all the board members, and that came up, and I immediately reached out to him, and I was like, I am so sorry for causing you to feel that way. That was not my intention. I was just showcasing so people could see where they were on, the fundraising goal. And I'd love to just have a conversation about it because that's not my heart. I took full responsibility versus like, I'm so sorry you felt that way, right? So those are some things that I think whatever side we're on, how we can address it.
So there are a couple of things I want to reflect and go back to or just underscore, and that is one, owning your part in it without being defensive. But also, if you are the person coming and asking, can I give you feedback?
Yeah.
You have to go with not as a setup. It's not like, can I give you feedback and then slam the person, right? It isn't that. The other thing, Justin, I'm wondering if you've done this or if it's you found it helpful. If someone says, can I give you feedback, but you get a sense, intuitive or otherwise, that they really are open. Mm-hmm. What about just saying, is this a good time? Or do we need to set a time so they've got more control of it as well?
Absolutely, especially in workplace settings. If they say yes, and you can get intuition is very powerful because you can sense. Was there hesitation? Was there? They said yes, but it looked like they were like no. And you can say, "Hey, is this a good?" To your point, is this a good time, or would you like to have this conversation later, or is now a good time? Yeah. So you allow that person to be open and honest because guess what? They could have just had an argument at home, and now may not be the right time to actually give them feedback in ways that they can constructively receive it.
To your point, don't assume why. If they say no, now's not right, don't assume it's about you.
Yes.
You're not the only thing in their life. So
yes, sadly.
It's so important to know that, right? Or maybe they're an introvert and they need to process that they're going to have a meeting and it makes them a little nervous, right?
Yes.
So I just think that's respecting the person as well. It isn't like putting anything under the carpet, but it's like, we'll do this, but let's make sure we're both in the headspace to be sincere and learn.
Yes. Okay. The goal is constructive dialogue. Yes.
Yeah, and I think constructive has been co-opted sometimes by some people to say anything I say to you is constructive because I'm the leader. Right? Yeah. I'll tell you, Justin, just why you're messing up because I'm. So I just that's why I'm thinking, okay, let's be true to our intent when we do this. Is it to learn or is it to shame somebody or whatever? Like, obviously, you're putting that guy at the bottom of the list wasn't to make him feel bad.
Not at all.
Right. So, but he doesn't know that. So Okay, so that was a great example of that parking lot conversation, bringing it around and trying to understand. And as a group, a team, a project, you do want everybody to be able to share, because you miss out if you don't have the team's honest appraisal of what's going on, because there are things that someone in that room knows that someone else doesn't. And you're thinking, well, I'm so glad you shared. It saved us so much, whatever, right? Or we've improved.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarah, if I could speak to that briefly, that's one of the things that we give as tips for leaders, because leaders have the opportunity to create that type of culture. And there's two ways, practical ways that leaders can do that. Number one, by asking for it. You would not imagine the amount of people that are open to sharing when the leader says, hey, can you share with me why this won't work? I want friction. I tell my team all the time, hey, I thrive on friction because it makes us better. So I want you to tell me why I'm wrong, why this won't work. And this is the second part, right? Because you can't just stop there. You then have to reward people for doing it. And what I mean by rewarding, I'm not talking about physical or giving them more compensation or anything like that. I'm talking about thanking them in the meeting in front of other people for disagreeing with you, for sharing their perspective, for sharing this different shade of way that they could approach this. Because people are often testing the waters to find out, are you really sincere, or did you just go to a workshop to open up and ask for feedback about ways that this could improve? But when you say, hey, you know what, I want to really appreciate you for doing this. And that's one of the things I love about one of the stories Sheryl Sandberg shares, is that when she made in one of the companies that she worked for before, she made a very big error, and they brought her on stage and they were like, hey, she made a huge error. It was $1 million error, but we are so grateful she made it. Not the error, but because it meant that she was trying hard.
Yeah.
And that, in front of others, magnifying, says so much. So that's what we can do with leaders. One, to ask for it, and two, reward people when they do it. And let me give you a bonus one. If something comes out of it, if a consensus was reached, go back to that moment. Thank that person directly, but also thank the team and those who helped to construct what ended up happening in terms of building consensus.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I know when I work with groups, the intent of the leader shapes the result that happens, right? And it's over the years, it's like people say, well, what's my plan? Sarah, what's your plan for our retreat? And I'm thinking, I have an outline. The plan is driven by the intent of the work and what you guys do with it, right? I'm not in there to say it fits in this box, because I don't know.
That's good. That's really good, Sarah.
But you have to be sincere about it. And if you're nervous and you're uncertain, that one thing I do know is I will always reach the right outcome, because I'm willing to see how it emerges. But there was a time in my life, it's like, no, here's the things we have to check off, right? Otherwise it's not successful. And that when you get the group involved, always works. It just does, because they created it. They came up with it. And if you're bringing your business acumen, or in your case, what all the experiences around it, you can help shape it. But you don't have to do the heavy lifting, because they're there for a reason.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because I love what you just shared. What do you think was that transition moment for you? Because you said you used to have to check off all the boxes, and now you just kind of let it flow, right? But what was that transition moment where you finally kind of let go and said the outcome is going to be what it is?
Well, first of all, when you have to have it your way, it's super stressful and it burns you out, right? You're trying to control for variables that you cannot control for. But then I realized, I'm thinking, that's not why people hired you, Sarah. For me in particular, people hire me because they feel confident and safe. They know I've got, like, if you think about it, like I'm a lighthouse. I know where the rocks are. So if you want to go this way, I'll keep you off the rocks. But I also understand what they need to do with the work when it's in. To your point, it's not just a workshop to feel good or a retreat to feel good, because they're there so they can carry it forward into business, in particular their nonprofit work. So when I started just going, wait, their team are experts in what they do. They are. I'm not there to teach them how to do their work. So I just thought, okay, let me ask the experts, and be it with that curious mind, like you're talking about. Like, don't ask it as a setup, but like, Sarah, what's from them? So what's fun is I know if I'm nervous a little bit, the right spot because I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know.
I love that.
I love it. Not always, but I
Yes.
watching the process unfold. So over the years, I've just gotten to this place where I can kind of detach. I see myself doing the work and then I detach. I'm going, what if this didn't work out?
Yeah.
What could happen? And then it gets so easy, just
Yeah.
if I'm documenting, I'm paying attention, it all wraps up. But I have learned so much. And then the more time, we've got these whole age multi-layered and cultural multi-layered. And so I'll give you the short story about where this is. So I assume, right, I've grown up, I've had this traditional work life where I've started my own businesses, work corporate, nonprofit, and then gone out on my own. And so I have my mentors from years past. And now I look back through their eyes, I'm thinking, man, I was smarter than I thought I was at that age. No wonder they gave me the rope, right? Like,
Yeah.
And so I look at some of these, I mean, they're young and they're new in what they're doing, but man, they are sharp. And I love that, right? So that inspires me to keep going and ask questions. But I just sit back and I'm amazed at like all this creativity that comes out that is focused on the mission. So
That's
it's
awesome.
it's not just a free for all. It's like we're heading somewhere, but I honestly, I don't care how we get there. I just want to get there. And I want to get there in the way that best serves the people, right?
That's good.
Does that make sense from where you're at?
Perfect sense. Yeah.
I'll take
better sense. Thank you.
Anytime I'll take your coaching.
No, I love it. I'm just always fascinated by people's transition points, right? That's why I love my MBA in change. Like, what was that catalyst of change that shifted from that? So you sharing that was really fascinating.
It was being dishonest to myself, like figuring I could fit into a mold someone else had said about this is how you work with people, to going to the intuitive part that says, yeah, that does work. It just doesn't work for you.
Right.
So, anyway.
Thank you for sharing.
And since that point, it's felt lighter and better.
That's awesome.
But I want to ask, will you talk about your foundation? Because a lot of people say, someday I wish I could do something like that. You didn't say someday, you're doing it.
Yeah.
How does that play into everything you've got going on?
In a lot of stuff in my life, to be transparent, it's been accidental. I haven't always planned out, but I've been observant of what's happening. Right, to your point of like the outcome is always the thing that happens when you just come from a good heart, a good intent. And when I forgave my dad, I remember that year I went over and visited the school in his home village, and I fell in love with the joy of the students. The joy was there. They were under-resourced. The classes were overcrowded. Some of the classes were under trees. There's holes in the roof. The learning was challenging because there wasn't a partition of walls so that the classrooms could hear the other classrooms and all these things. And I was just like, I have to do something. I have to serve, right? I have to, I want to utilize my resources for good. And so I asked, the headmaster and headmistress, what could I do? Because I remember that was important. I remember reading a book back in the day called When Helping Hurts, and that we sometimes can go and assume we know what they need. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. What do you need? And at that time, they were like, hey, we need 90 dual desks. And they asked me in 2020, and I'll be honest, I was like, I'm not sure, because I asked them that question before March. It was January 2020.
Before the shutdown?
Before the shutdown. And I was, in that moment, I didn't know if I was going to have a business like several months later. But very fortunately, things turned around for us in our business, and we were able to provide them 90 dual desks. And then we asked again, what else do you need? And they said, clean water, because the students were walking 2 to 3 miles just to get clean water. And so we launched the Clean Water Project, and in January 2023, they had access to clean water right there on the campus. We did a water borehole, all that kind of stuff. Now, this is where the accidental part comes in. When they were doing the thing for water, the Ghanaian news came, and they wrote something up and put it in the press, and they called us Work Meaningful Foundation. Now, I didn't have a foundation. Wasn't planning on doing a foundation, right? We were just giving money from our business, which is called Work Meaningful. But that planted a seed in me, and because the next time I asked them, what do you need? They said, Justin, a school building because the learning conditions are horrible and we need more space. And really there's 2 to 3, and there still is 2 to 300 students, which is our big goal, who can't go to school because they can't afford it. And so I asked, like, all right, how much does it cost, right? And they were like, for a year, per student, it was like $30. I was like, so are you telling me that $9,000 would allow for 300 students in this village and surrounding to be able to go to school? I was like, I wanted to write the check right then. But then I had to ask myself strategically, but where would they go? Where would they go? And so strategically, it was building the new 2-story middle school first. And so that became the thing. But I realized I couldn't do that on my own. I couldn't just write a check for my business. You know, that was a 6-figure project. So I was like, all right, how do I get other people involved? And that was really tough for me, Sarah, because I don't like asking people for help. I don't like asking people for money, especially money. And so that opened me up I had to get over myself to be able to do that. And so then we started the 501c3 and got a board and foundation. And then we made a couple of truths. Number one is that our board would be 100% giving board. Number two is that we decided to be 100% giving in the sense of like what people gave, 100% of it would go to the initiatives. Because for our business, Work Meaningful, we're doing a 5% pledge. So 5% of our profits goes towards the foundation and covers all administrative costs, all the website staffing, all that kind of stuff. And that's what makes our work meaningful. So every presentation, book sale, all is something that's super meaningful. And so that's how the Accidental Foundation came about.
That's a book name, The Accidental Foundation. Well, you're
Yeah.
doing everything right. But the one thing, Justin, how did you get over or more? Did you make friends with your resistance to asking?
Yes. And what helps, I'm still not 100% there, right? I've gotten better. Is I keep going back to the why. Why am I doing this? And I go back to the students and I look at the pictures with the students and I look at the videos of the students and I look and I'm like, this is for them. This is not about me. And so that's the reminder for me in those moments where should I ask? Should I post it on social media? Most people don't really like those posts where you ask to put up some money. I'm going to text friends. I mean, and the worst people can say is no. What I realized, I've become more willing to do that than even the stuff for my business. We do more of a pull strategy for our business. We put out good content, good work, good things, and so word of mouth that kind of happens. And so I don't have to do a lot of outreach that people don't know me. So I'm very thankful for that, but I have to do that a little bit more with the foundation. And so the why is the thing that keeps me going. I mean, and that better be the one I go to. I wrote the book called Your Why Matters Now. And so for me, that's been a really helpful moment.
Can I offer you one more reframe on that?
Please.
When you don't ask people, you take away from the rest of us the opportunity to give and share. And if you don't ask, we don't even know it's a possibility. So when I shifted my mind from like asking is really helping people because they want to contribute, but they don't know how. And you know how. You've got some tangible ways. You have some kids you know will benefit and a community you've already benefited. I mean, and it's really common. People don't like to ask for help. And it's drilled into us, be independent, which is great. But sometimes we all need help.
100%. And to get over because I'm a very observant person. Yeah. And one of the things I've noticed is that there's a lot of charity fatigue that's out there right now. And as I've surveyed my friends because of my circle, right? I'm in the leadership circles of people who are these people who have resources are constantly asked. But to your point, I don't know what fits with people and what doesn't. I mean, I have some people who ask me and I'm saying, hey, that's not a focus or something that I'm interested. I'd love to connect you with people who might be really interested in that. And I just have to your point, I have to give people the opportunity to know, like, somebody's like, oh, I love education. I've had some people like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for this. Yeah. But had I not asked, I would not have known. And I have to be okay with the rejection of people who say, hey, that's not a focus of mine. I'm putting more of my focus on domestic violence. And I have to be okay. Like, okay, you have your thing. That's great, right? You don't have to always support my thing, right? So to your point, yes.
That's powerful because you're going to run into someone in the future who says, I really want to support domestic violence, you're going, I know someone else who does that. I connect you with them.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just about us connecting, and just,
Yes.
so I'll know Justin. And if someone said,
Yeah.
I'm looking at a way to resource an under-resourced school where I know blah, 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 I'm thinking, well, let me connect you up with Justin, right? So,
Yeah.
because there's your guy. So
Yes.
if we don't ask, we don't know. And if we,
I agree.
for me, and I say these things because I've learned them personally and watched, like when you talk about like talking with your dad, maybe the outcome wasn't exactly what you thought, but it changed you.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of going through life, is to grow and learn and change. And so you ask, it's not the end of the world to get turned down. It isn't. You'll feel okay. Not right maybe in that moment, but you'll feel okay.
And that's why therapy is important, Sarah, because it sounds really good to say that, but for people like me who struggled with rejection, it's one of the most terrifying things. And so my therapy,
for me, coaching's been helpful. It's that outside person that can say, let's look at this maybe through a different way and try it as an exercise, not as the end of your life if you don't get it the way you want it.
Yes.
No,
so 100%.
I'm a fan. I still remember some of the wise words. Like, get over yourself. Just oh, and I'm not making light of it, but it's powerful.
Yeah.
So I'm amazed about what this is. I just want to ask you, like, you're touring and you're doing this book thing. You're going for your wedding in Ghana, and then you're coming back to your book tour, building the school. Go to the end of this year, the end of 2024, assuming no world catastrophes. What would you like to have said, over the last few months? We got this done. We are so super, whether you did it on your own or in colleague with many other people.
Yeah, so 3 things come to mind, right? Because I've been thinking about this quite a bit. Number one is that, me and my wife have started having a successful blending of our family, right? That's the number one and most important thing, that we've been blending, caring for the kids well, caring for each other well. And so moving forward towards that good blending, right? It's going to be hard and challenging, but it's going to be so worth it. And so that's number one. Number two is that we have finished the school. We're about 20,000 remaining to raise, and we've already asked them what do they need beyond this, and the next thing is a technology lab. Ideally, we'd not only finish the school this summer. We have a big gala in Charlotte that we do, but that we have been started work on the technology lab that will go in the new 2-story middle school. And number 3, that we would have saved a lot of relationships. And what I mean by that is not just in terms of the significant other type of relationships, but work relationships, community relationships with our work, and both on a respectful disagreement. Being in the U.S., an election year, I'm excited to give people tools and frameworks to have better conversations with people that disagree with. What I've seen in our society, I would discipline my children for. And so I'm hopeful and excited to help in any way to make progress toward this principle, that people would progressively get better. Not perfect, because I'm not perfect. I still disrespectfully disagree at times, but I'm getting better, and I'm faster to apologize as well. So those are the 3 things I would really see.
Okay, so for folks, and we talked about this in the pre-chat, and then you just mentioned it. So for folks who are unfamiliar with the story of the tortoise and the hare, talk about that metaphor and how it's sustained you in your work and how it helps other people that you share that with.
Absolutely. So it's one of my favorite fables growing up. And for me, that initially came from not only understanding the change management theories and models from Cotter to ProSci and all that kind of stuff, but it was like, the tortoise we've called the tortoise the wrong name all these years. And it hit me one day, especially when I was doing the work around inclusion. And I was like, we've called the tortoise wrong. The tortoise wasn't slow. The tortoise was strategic. We only called the tortoise slow because we compared it to the hare. And I was like, my goal, my challenge, not only in inclusion work, not only in meaningful work, not only in respectful disagreement, is for people to be tortoises. And so that's one of our company values, is called Be the Tortoise. And when you're being the tortoise, for those who don't know the story, the tortoise and the hare are getting ready to race. And, the tortoise is getting ready and the hare is like overconfident, like, I got this. Of course, I'm faster. I can zip, 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 right? And so the gun goes off, boom, right? The hare bolts off, right? And it's leading, killing the game. The tortoise is slowly moving forward compared to the hare. But the hare is like, wait a minute, I'm good. So the hare gets distracted, says, I'm going to take a nap. Goes, takes a nap, and wakes up, and it's like, wait a minute, where am I? And then, oh my gosh, it looks up and sees the tortoise getting ready to cross the finish line. And so it immediately tries to rush to get to the finish line, but by then the tortoise has already won. And the moral of the story that they've given, the Aesop fables, is that slow and steady wins the race. And I'm like, no. It's not slow, steady, consistent and strategic wins the race. And so that for me has been a metaphor of how we grow. Is I've seen a lot of hares in our society. I've seen a lot of people that initially looks really good, but there's no long-lasting sustainable growth. That the change initiative is done. It's like, let's just throw up this. Let's change the mission statement. Let's just hire this new person. Let's just do this. Let's just change our social media profile. And there's no long sustainable change. And so my challenge to individuals and our corporate and organizational clients is to be the tortoise. Now, the retort I often get back is, well, we don't want to be slow. And that's where I'm challenging the frame of reference, is that the tortoise isn't slow, the tortoise is strategic. Because I'd much rather have a person, an organization, a team, that while it may look like it's taking longer, that they actually, in 5 years, have strategically built upon a solid foundation that others have given up on in the first 1 to 2 years.
Justin, I think that's a great place to wrap the interview. So listeners, this is what I'm asking you to do. Consider where you or your team have shown up as the tortoise or the hare. No judgment, but we would love, Justin and I would love to hear that. If you can post it wherever you're listening to the show in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, put it in the comments, because I think it'd be interesting to see, okay, where have we shown up? I know where I've shown up in both categories and where I've benefited. But we would love to learn from you, your experiences of being either the tortoise or the hare. So Justin, thank you so much. This has been super fun. I've been looking forward to interviewing you ever since I got some info on you, and you did not disappoint.
Thank you. What did you enjoy about it, if you don't mind me asking?
Your energy. I love your energy. I love your laugh. I love your openness. Your heart. Your heart just shines through,
Thank you so much.
And next time we talk, let's talk about your Labradoodle.
Yes. Chase, my Chasey Poo. Yeah.
All right, everybody. We will be back next week with another episode. Until then, do well, be good, show up, and respectfully disagree with the right intent.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic business coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. Please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Till next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.